Michael, Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries says Trump is missing in action. Is there any sense he's being sidelined at all? And if that's true, who is in charge of negotiations? Is it Russell Vought?
That's a very good question. It turns out that right now, as we speak, Donald Trump is on the golf course playing golf while people are at home trying to figure out how they're going to pay their bills. Republicans in 1 year have an election, and they're going to ask voters whether they should renew their contract to run this government. And I don't see any way possible how that happens. You've got this government shutdown with no leadership shown by the president. And I've worked through many government shutdowns, having worked in both the House and the Senate. And in those situations, you need constant communication and leadership from the president to bring both sides together. That's not happening. You've got this economy that's in the toilet. You've got jobs, more than 1 million have been lost this year alone. Republicans have nothing to run on it. I think Donald Trump has to step forward and show some leadership here if we're going to end this shutdown and bring people to the table.
Should the next steps be?
There's no precedent for the moment we're in. Donald Trump, even in his first administration, did not destroy and dismantle parts of the government during the shutdown, and that's what's happening. Yeah, we had the shutdown under President Obama. We had 2 shutdowns under Donald Trump during the first term, but in none of those situations did the president say, I'm going to use this opportunity to inflict pain on government workers in Washington and people throughout the country in terms of canceling contracts for subway systems in New York and beyond. I mean, that's just unconscionable corruption. As it relates to how this moves forward, as you mentioned, public sentiment is with Democrats in nearly every poll. I think as this moves on, Democrats are in Washington, and so they can show that they're trying to work. Republicans, if they're not going to have the conversation, have to at least be in Washington to show voters they're doing something. And right now, that's not happening. Donald Trump is on the golf course, and Speaker Johnson is nowhere to be found.
So what do people want their elected representatives to do to solve this? I mean, does it have to go both ways, whatever the solution is?
It's interesting. I think people both want their politicians to find solutions, but they also want their politicians to represent them and their beliefs in Congress, which sometimes can conflict. But to the point that Brendan just made, I think it's problematic because this is not happening in a bubble. Americans need to be more united because we have serious global threats that we have to address. For instance, our electrical grid is constantly under cyber attacks from other countries. You just had this report earlier this week that there was a China-linked attack on the cell phone towers in New York City. There are a number of foreign issues that we have to address as a country, and we have to be unified to do that. And so in the context of why that's important, I think it's critical that we do that. We have rising terrorism in the Sahel region of Africa and beyond. We have to address these things as a country, and we have to be united. And I think that if that's going to happen, the tone has to be set at the top from politicians in Washington.
What are you hearing about Chicago? Since it's your hometown, what's happening?
I think people are angry. They see the obvious, which is the Constitution is under assault. Their personal rights and freedoms are under assault by this White House and by this administration. What happened to states' rights as it relates to the White House working with the governor to say, how can we be helpful? The reality here is that Donald Trump has gutted the budget of police enforcement across the country. And so what he's done is he's gutted those budgets of police departments, and then he's saying, I'm going to send troops into there, in some part to do things like clean up garbage, like they've done in Washington, D.C., and other things that they should not be doing. And so what's interesting is people in Chicago and beyond are upset because they are under assault. And many of them, even those who came here illegally and maybe are going through the process, they're tax-paying citizens, many of them. And so we have to have a real process to deal with all this. You and I have talked about this many times in terms of this broken immigration system. And maybe if Donald Trump led with legislation that created a process, we could do this in a smoother way. But the idea of taking mothers and fathers off the street one by one and children is just cruel, and it's un-American, and that's sad that that's where we are right now.